Thank you everybody for coming out. Thought this was a very informative, exciting topic, just given the relevance that we're seeing across the country to renovate, upgrade, do these deep energy retrofits across the board for our existing building stock. And we're fortunate enough to get a great panel here with everything from the design side, the construction side, and the ownership side. So to start off, Jason, why don't you give us a quick intro?
Nice to see everybody. I'm Jason Glatt, AWI. We are a glazer in the DMV for 30 years. We're a little bit unique. We do a large variety of projects. So really the past 10 years we've been pretty heavily engaged in new construction window wall projects, but we've also been doing rehabs and military. The reason I'm mentioning that is it's become very relevant in the DMV market with all the office reskins, and not every reskin is the same. So we have really focused on being a solution center for those reskins. We've done about 10 so far in the DMV. We work all over the country. This market is definitely a leading example of successful office conversions. How do I do it? Just some of the buildings we've done in the DMV: 1101 King, 901 North Fairfax, Park and Forward, 1625 Mass. Each one of these is unique. We've used different window products, from aluminum punch windows to aluminum window wall. On 1101 King, we have vinyl hiding in the courtyard. So we're looking at these buildings differently, and we'll talk more about how we approach them. And the full reskins is Park and Forward, 901 North Fairfax, and we've done pretty much everything in between. So look forward to telling you more today, and I'll pass it off to Brad.
Let's go to Rebecca first, from Post Brothers.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us today. My name is Rebecca Frisch. I head up the design department at Post Brothers. We are a multifamily developer, and I think I have a unique perspective on this, just because really focusing on the product, the end result, and how facades affect, not just from the beginning, the rendering phase. Oh, I'm in charge of moving these. We're vertically integrated, so thinking about all aspects of the project from start to finish. This is just a little bit about us. I focus a lot on the product. We have mostly large-scale residential projects that have really oversized amenities, and our interiors have always strive for the best in class of finishes. And I thought we would mostly focus on our project here. This is our first project in DC, the old Universal building at 1825 Connecticut Northwest. And I just had a couple of photos of proposed and existing, and how we're gonna fully reskin this building, and working with Brad on this a bit. And just a couple more photos here, before and afters. Not after yet, proposed. And just, I'm excited to be part of this panel.
Thank you. There we go. All right, so I'm Brad Carpenter, a senior principal with Simpson Gumpertz & Hager. We're the disciplinary engineering company, but my practice has been in the Washington D.C. area over 25 years now, focusing on building enclosures, building facades in particular. As with many of you in design firms, I have a lot of wonderful, talented colleagues that we rely on to get our jobs done, but this is one area where we are focused on, in this market in particular, a lot of the adaptive reuse projects and repositioning projects. But it's not just something that is a new fad. There's a number of projects in here from a handful of years ago that this is something that we've been working on for a while. Right now, the economics of it, the interest in multifamily and even hospitality, some of these projects, working with Jason and his team on the Mass Ave project, but economic factors drive these projects, and we look for what can we do with each project, what are the stakeholders interested in, how do we distill that down and make those decisions very early, right? We don't have to solve all the problems, but we need to, as a team, understand what they are and how we do them, because we ask, particularly of our enclosures, we ask them to do an awful lot. And for repositioning projects in particular, we have to work together as a whole team early. We can't put our blinders on and focus on our particular discipline alone like we might be able to do on some new design projects. Here we have to early on understand everybody's position, because we're all interrelated. We're dealing with existing conditions and the unique challenges that are there. So I'm going to leave this slide up, and Adrian, let you take over.
So let's look at a high level, Rebecca, to start from the ownership perspective. When you're assessing as a group a new property and trying to envision what's possible, what comes to mind in terms of what makes it a worthwhile pursuit versus a no-go and something we should walk away from?
I think we're always balancing several things. The overall sort of design intent, constructability, and then long-term operations. So thinking about those categories, obviously the ROI is going to come into effect as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that's maybe what I can speak to this project here in DC. One of the most enticing things about that was literally the site, the location. And you really can't find another, you wouldn't be able to build that ground up right now in such a prime neighborhood. In the Calorama neighborhood, it's basically the townhouse of all townhouses right there up on a hill, and being able to think about that building and not just tearing it down, reutilizing it. That footprint is a great footprint, but completely reimagining the exterior and the skin and just balancing the numbers to see what makes sense. And I get to work through the execution of that.
So you two get the call. First, Brad gets the call from a technical standpoint to assess the existing conditions. First of all, Brad from a technical standpoint, and then Jason from a constructability standpoint. Where does your eye go first?
Understanding the owner's expectations and their objectives of the project is critical, right? First on, how are they making it work? And there's a lot of different types of projects. Some of the ones that I showed earlier, there's everything from complete reskins to projects like the Mass Ave project for National Real Estate, where we retained a bit of the facade, right? There may be a historical context, a streetscape context that we're trying to retain. And so understanding what those existing conditions that we're constrained by, if you recognize it early, they become opportunities. If you wait until later to try to resolve that, they can become true constraints that really do prevent you from realizing the objectives of the project.
Yeah, and I'll say I'm usually brought into that call when people are looking for budgets. And my job has become on these kind of buildings, almost how little can you do before how much can you do. I would say the average approach I see is, can we leave the glass alone? The questions are, how are you venting the building? Are there acoustical requirements that are going to come with your new permit? Are there energy requirements that you're going to have to maintain? And then there's, okay, you have to add operable windows. I've been asked more times than I can count, can you put a new operable window in this 50-year-old curtain wall system? The answer is yes to anything, but there's caveats and there's qualifications. And so, do you want to Frankenstein a 50-year-old system? Understand you're not going to have a warranty on any of that existing 50-year-old system. But we try and approach it as the use of the building. Geneva's a great example, where it's a high-end product. They want a distinct look on the outside. That's not every approach. Some approaches are, we need to get heads and beds. This building's been empty for 3 years. What's the cheapest way to make that happen? So we're open to all those things. I will say that 80% of the time, they end up replacing the windows, because when you figure out how to put the operable windows in and the best way to horizontally vent, it tends to lead to a window replacement. But we don't push it. I'm very honest about what the budgets can be and what the options can be.
I think, Rebecca, because your firm operates on a national or regional scale, let's make this specific to DC. What are the unique opportunities here, whether it's zoning, market demands, or shifts? I think people's head goes to office to residential, but there's office to hotel, office to mixed use. So there's a lot of opportunities depending on the specific market needs.
No, absolutely. Our business really is most focused on the residential, and we had done it in Philadelphia actually before it became such a trend. We have a property in downtown Philadelphia, the Atlantic Building. It was like the old Richfield Oil Company headquarters, and it was an office, and that kind of kicked us off to being familiar with taking that deep floor plate and making it work for residential. And it was just really a no-brainer to apply that here in DC. And it took us a while to get started, but now we're moving quick. And I think the great opportunity, like I said, for this specific site is really that location. It's such a residential neighborhood. Everywhere around the building has the most beautiful homes, and to be able to have such a great resident experience, really, I don't think we could have achieved without renovating or without completely doing the retrofit of the building. I think one thing that's different here for this product versus some of our Philadelphia is these units are very large. Our kind of small one beds are 740 square feet. We have kind of two tiers of a small and a larger set of apartments, and our larger one beds are about 1,000 each. So we're really this project is over 1 million square feet, and it only has 535 units. So 534 units. So they're just really oversized, and I think that's something that we could only do in DC. I don't know that the Philadelphia market is ready for that yet.
So once Rebecca establishes that target in building, and they say, we're going to go, and you two are brought in. In terms of the hierarchy of wants and needs, everybody wants better performance, everybody wants speed, everybody wants more competitive pricing, everybody wants the most sustainable materials. What is unique to existing buildings? Jason, I know we were talking earlier about speed, how all of a sudden your critical path becomes a higher driving point relative to new construction. So in terms of wants versus needs, how does this differ in new build versus existing building?
I think it can be easier as far as knowing what's there and seeing what you're up against. We have a lot of precast on the old buildings. It seems to be a pretty common denominator. So you are waterproofing to an exterior waterproofing system left in place. I'm going to tee this up to Brad in a good way, because on 1625, there were 7 different details reviewed. My job in that is to menu them. I've learned over the years, my job is not to say good, bad, or that'll work, you don't have to. My job is to say, I can warranty this detail. These all give you better details long term, and here's the prices for it. And that's where Brad comes in, and the waterproof at 1625 is probably the best that I've done so far, because they agreed to the right detail.
Yeah, and that's an important thing here, is about managing expectations. We talked a minute ago about the idea of bringing the team together early to discuss objectives and to make sure everybody's on the same page. But my job as a consultant is yes, there's never a no, right? It's what are people willing to sacrifice, and being able to make those decisions. So understanding the consequences of a decision of, if we can simplify it, it makes it way more constructible, repeatable, right? We can do quality control on the work. Understanding the limitations of the existing building and what you're retaining is really important to establishing a good starting point, and then making sure that we have products that we know can satisfy the technical requirements of the project early, and that the pricing's really developed around that context to start with. And so you're not picking a design detail at the end of DD, you're really coming up with a philosophy pretty early and recognizing those viable pathways through, and then trying to balance all of the competing interests on it and get it done quickly and get the quality done well. And so having particularly facade trades involved earlier and the facade subs involved earlier to make some of those decision points, I think, is a critical aspect of it. Because if you're dealing with a building, an existing building, speed is a big part of it, right? You want to get you're not having to rebuild the structure, maybe you're retweaking a facade, but you want to get that job done quickly. And so involving those parties earlier is that, I think, key to success.
I want to add to that real quick. Just an example of what Brad's talking about. Turnaround in a rehab job from contract to windows on site, typically 6 months or less. New construction, 12 to 18 months. So knowing what you're doing before that contract's signed, having the players involved, having the architect happy with the details so that when that first submittal goes in, you're not stuck in a back and forth for months. All that gets really important, because if we can't get windows in on time and the general contractor starts putting framing in before the windows get there to try and speed things up, it's catastrophic. We can't get windows through the building now because there's new framing up in the way. So now we're trying to figure out how to get them up from the outside, going a whole lot slower than we would. So speed in window delivery, it's harder to achieve on rehab if you're not engaged early. But the building's there, and there's no reason you can't do that.
So in new construction, you're dealing with perfect, hopefully, conditions where you can start from scratch. But existing buildings, you have your constraints, your limitations. And like you said, Brad, your limitations. What upfront costs and efforts are required as it relates to feasibility and assessment, whether it's structural capacity, diving into those unknown unknowns, compatibility, fire continuity? What upfront efforts does the owner have to buy into before everybody's on the same page about this is the direction we're going?
Great question, because every building is different, and that's one of the challenges, right? Our existing building stock is built over decades, has a lot of different characteristics. Some of them are well attuned to being reused without modification. Others are more challenging, right? They didn't have an air water barrier that was really functional, or even buildings that are portions of the facade may be obsolete. And so we're thinking through the cost of various strategies, how much of the facade is getting reused, how much of it, if it's a full reskin, we're thinking about slab edges, we're thinking about floor loads, we're thinking about, do we cut back office buildings, right? Big blocks. Residential, we want setbacks, we want some articulation in the facade. That takes effort, and it's more on the structural side, but reusing the existing facade, getting a good assessment, understanding air, water, thermal performance, what's your strategy gonna be? Because ultimately those new areas have to touch, have to integrate with the strategy that's gonna work on the existing ones.
The only thing I have to add to that is physical mock-ups. Understanding, demo a window, look at your wall cavities, stick a piece of plywood back in. It doesn't have to be expensive, but getting physical eyes on what's there, it's 100% wrong before you look at it. So whatever the assumptions are, get that window out, look at the wall sections and see what's going on.
Visual is not good enough. You've got to make openings.
So in terms of wants versus needs, I think your needs, you might need operable windows in a residence. You have to get enough light in the space. We might be horizontally ventilating instead of vertically ventilating, but from the want standpoint, especially from the ownership side, we spoke about the attraction of having amenities, whether it's rooftop space or a dog care center in the public space or area. But in terms of differentiation, where are some of those wants that come into play to be able to deliver a competitive space given what's coming to market?
For us, we really focus generally on the resident experience. It's the most sophisticated of products, really thinking about how you're going to utilize the space, and that goes from where the kitchen sink is in relation to the refrigerator, all the way to what are the amenities that we are going to have in our buildings. And the Geneva has a huge footprint, and it was already, the south portion of it was already perfect for amenities because it's a large donut. It had parking around the edge, and then the middle was already cut out for us. So we're basically just filling that middle in with these really robust amenity packages. We have double height aquatic center inside of the building at the base of the donut. Then above that, we have another double height fitness center with a whole sort of recovery kids area that overlooks it. And then a smattering of the smaller type of amenities like the co-working space, all the kind of things that you generally would have, as well as a really amazing pool deck up at the top. And so for us, it's really just thinking about all the things that you need and how you're going to really interact with them. And then where I think what sets us apart from DC, from the other product in DC, because DC, a lot of the product has all of these things. It's really thinking about it in a cohesive way with a real design identity and just making sure that all of the pieces match and you're really feeling like you're in an elevated space, for just making sure all the details are coordinated. So our overall theme is just being one of the nicest homes in this beautiful neighborhood, and that's why we're recladding the building in this limestone look. It is precast, but which is very generally utilized in the area, and it's just really being that most elevated of townhomes in the neighborhood and having access to all of these things right in your home.
So given everybody in this panel has experience in other markets where we're talking high-rise, super tall buildings, thinking about what's unique and opportunistic or advantageous about DC, a couple things we spoke about are you're dealing with low to mid-rise buildings, so access from a boom lift might pose opportunity relative to a 30, 40-story building. Also relative to Philadelphia or New York, where you have these buildings stacked on top of one another, you have more room for laydown space and sequencing and so forth. So what kind of helping people envision just the building landscape, what makes this super opportunistic?
I would say just real quick, the views. The views are incredible because of that, what is maybe a negative from an interior perspective of a low floor to ceiling or relatively low floor to ceiling. The views are incredible. You can see the Washington Monument from everywhere. That's why the rule is there, but it really makes for a fantastic experience.
And I think we know this pretty well, and it's always a struggle on projects trying to maximize the spaces inside the building under the height limitations. But what that's left us with is building stock from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that frankly has a very adaptable floor-to-floor height for residential use or for hospitality, which is why I think we see so much of it. And that's really helpful for us. The facade product types that we look for in these are economically developed for a slab-to-slab condition. They're prefabricated, so arrive to site quick. We're thinking about precast. We have a lot of good precast capacity in the area, and that's a facade that can go up pretty quickly. And again, part of it is speed, but part of it's also making sure that the new project as a whole really meets the overarching vision, and we don't have any unfortunate things that we're stuck with. We try to find creative ways to get around all of those.
The only thing I'd add is I bid a lot of office precincts in other markets. DC is moving faster than anyone by far. I think it's as simple as the buildings are smaller, you're putting less money into them, and you're turning them around faster, just because of the size. So I think the bank loans are maybe easier to get. You would know that better than I would. But I see the high-rise markets, 30, 40 stories, those are, the articles I read are they're waiting on government subsidy. They're waiting on cities to give better offerings to turn those buildings because they just don't work financially.
So I want to turn it over to the audience in a minute, but on a final note, that's actually important to talk about. Has local zoning, politics, incentives made it more favorable to take on this type of project here versus other jurisdictions?
We were fortunate enough to get a lot of support from the city to be bringing the housing downtown, and our project was part of the Housing in Downtown recent innovation where we were able to utilize that. And we also, because of the fact that we're reusing a building, there was a lot of incentive for that as well, and that's how we were able to kind of get over the finish line with our final round, being part of the CPACE project.
And I'd say lack of regulation has helped. We're building apartments that are closer to the White House today than they've ever been. At an annex in 1625 Mass, these weren't meant to be residential, but DC's roadblocks, they're not big. They want these buildings used, they want the restaurants attended, so they're making it easy.
All right, we'd love to hear from the audience if you have any questions. I read these? Okay. What obstacles were overcome when faced with hazmat after that was assessed and risk abatement versus other methods of treatment evaluated?
It's inevitable on most of our projects that there's some amount of interior issues or even existing facades portions that are going to be retained, right? That we have issues with the caulk or issues with paint and other things like that, asbestos on interior mechanical systems and things. I cannot recall a project where that was not able to be addressed. And again, this is part of that early survey, condition assessment, understand the hurdles that you're going to have to jump through. If you know that early, you plan for it, you build it into the schedule. If you're having to react more to unknowns, then that inevitably becomes the long pole in the tent, pushes everything. So.
I can just say that we obviously had to do abatement when we were demoing the interior, and we knew it was going to happen, but what we didn't understand, we did have to rejigger the schedule around a little bit, because one thing that you have to remember is that you don't want to be near it at all. So we had to switch where we were working in the building with demolition to always keep one floor of buffer in between the asbestos versus the other areas.
So I actually think this one's really interesting. What challenges do you see with existing building facades having to meet current energy codes? And I think to add on to that, are there any other exemptions or items that have been grandfathered in from previous versions of the code when, a couple questions here, Brad, when triggering an existing building upgrade? And to add to that, what does trigger some of these energy codes versus others, or some of these code requirements versus others?
Great question. Very long answer if I answer the whole thing. We have decent buildings in the city, and depending on the level of intervention is really part of it. So if you're replacing glass, no. If you're replacing a window frame, yes. Now you're going to have to, that window product's going to have to meet it. If you're removing interior finishes, now you've got to insulate your wall, right? I think the holistic approach, I've always tried to view things looking at all of the aspects of a project, trying to balance it all. There are plenty of projects I've worked on, like the Heck Warehouse project, right? Glass block, not exactly thermally effective for our modern codes, but there was a need. It's a significant defining feature of the building. How do we work around that? How can we do the analysis to show, hey, we're going to limit condensation? To interior storms, right? Interior storms are often used in retrofit and retaining existing windows that might be monolithic glazing. So there are a lot of strategies, and I think we're too eager to just jump to the brand new thing. Although that is a way to solve it, I am convinced that there's a solution to improve the energy efficiency of mass masonry, of all of these things, if we do it thoughtfully, we do it integrated with the other aspects of a project, which is why you can't create a flow chart to tell you what to do here. Every project is different, all the stakeholders have different views, but I am convinced that we have the technologies and the opportunities to bring all of our buildings up from an energy performance standpoint. It might mean a little more sophisticated analysis on a certain project, but we have those options now available, and it has not presented a roadblock on projects that I know of.
We actually just saw a question on life cycle analysis. I was trying to figure out what the WB was, whole building life cycle analysis. So how that's factored into this type of upgrade. And Rebecca, I want to ask you this question, especially as an owner operator or self-performing owner. How do these decisions filtering process differ with that style where all those upfront costs and long-term maintenance implications are communicated very directly to the owner out of the owner's pocket? So I think it helps you make more informed decisions.
Yeah, I think it's pretty I think you already answered the question in a lot of ways. I think when we have something that's performing, where we're paying an upfront cost for better performance, then it's going to help us in the long run, for sure. And I think we definitely we understand the value of the space being more comfortable, like the things that you don't see, what a lot of the stuff that I talked about you're seeing and you're interacting with, but air quality is always very important to us, and just the quality of the HVAC, and we would never think of doing windows that weren't operable and that didn't meet the basic energy code. So I think that you're gonna see that value in the rent and the occupancy rates.
I'll love to jump in on this topic, because the idea that the trade-offs that we make as designers and as team members of how much of the existing building, obviously the structure is almost always part of that. Structure has the most embodied carbon, right? I'll address the elephant in the room, which is how much of this building is going to end up in a landfill versus retained. You retain older systems, they might have a higher implied maintenance demand, which means something to an owner. You have to start and stop your new glazing system to deal with existing opaque wall areas and things like that. That has its own complications from a construction standpoint. But whenever we can save and reuse materials in a responsible way, that's extremely important. And those decisions partially come from the owner and their appetite for doing that, for being conscious about those things. But part of it is also about, as a team, deciding, hey, these aspects of the design from an architectural intent, this is an important feature of the building, let's see if we can retain it. What does that mean? We have the tools available to us to do that sort of a parametric analysis of, okay, if we retain these features, what is the benefit to us as an LCA versus all new material, and what's the payback on maybe the slightly improved, and realistically only slightly improved energy performance of that. I think the Lafayette building, the old Export-Import Bank building on Vermont Avenue, is a great example of taking the time to think about it. That project has 1940s rolled steel single hung windows. Federal building. Obviously, you'd love to have improved protection with those windows and energy efficiency. We took the time to study it. Rolled steel windows with an interior storm performs better than a new, modern, thermally broken IGU product. Air, water, thermal. And no one knew that, right? We didn't know that at the onset, but it changed the trajectory of that project, and we were able to retain those original windows and prevent essentially the loss of that historic material.
One quick thing. So use an example Brad's talking about. The glazing to meet the codes, it's easy. Windows today, they're high performing. When it comes to the whole building, every job is different. Like we keep saying, I have multiple projects that I'm not going to use names of in DC, where we have to plastic off 100-year-old brick to be able to water test the window. So the window's not leaking, but the walls are going to. It all is depending on what the developer wants to do. Judgment-free zone. We do what we need to do, but every building's different. And the answer is not just the window's going to save the day, it's what are you doing everywhere else around the window as well. So we have to take those into consideration.
There was a question before about multi-material integrated systems. I think it was called hydrotic shell technologies, systems that incorporate your prefabricated envelope along with mechanical technology. Has there been a push to go all electric in some of these buildings, and in doing so, is the expectation to integrate your mechanical system within the glazed opening in lieu of your traditional puncturing the opaque area? Especially in cities like New York, we've seen this huge push to have your all-electric mechanical unit within the glazed opening to eliminate your traditional means and methods of heating and cooling.
I'm seeing a lot of vertical vent plans on a lot of the recent ones I've seen. If you're replacing the whole facade, typically we're putting the horizontal venting in the replacement window wall system that's going to have all your OPEG and everything's tied in. So in that, you're taking the old system off, making sure your slabs are still sound to take a new system on. That's the quickest way to achieve it. And then we come and do a floor week with a new system that everything's built at a factory, setting on the slab edge, and hurry up and get to the next floor.
We're going speed round to get through every question. So challenges with parking garages when converting an office building to residential.
I think for us, it was really we were able to actually capture back some of the parking, and we're not using as much parking as was parked for the office as we are intending for the residential. It's just not needed. So I think that we overcame that challenge by just taking it back for resident space and units and amenities like I described. And then I think in the current garage, I think a garage today would be built perhaps a little taller. We have some height restrictions that are probably just only because of the conversion.
Last one for our technical folk. Are there common waterproofing challenges that you come across specific to DC as it relates not only to the window area, but the opaque interfaces as well?
Yeah, I think if I strayed from our facades, right, DC is a challenge because we've got a huge GAR requirement, stormwater requirements, and we are squashed on the height, and so we're cramming amenities and everything into a single space. Speaking of the need for really integrated, good communication, that's one. But on projects where we're retaining pieces of the original facade, right, working within the limitations of mass masonry, right, most modern glazing systems are systems that have waterproofing integration, thermal integration. Existing walls don't have thermal where we would like it, so we're insulating on the inside or maybe overcladding outboard. That's pretty common for us. And another thing that happens a fair bit in DC is we have one facade. We have a primary facade, and then we've got 3 facades that are of lesser quality that we also have to deal with. Might be an opportunity to overclad those facades because they don't have any character defining features, but retaining a portion of that historic material and the limitations of its performance is always a big factor.
All right, we got the big stop. So thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed this, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.